What's up, Road to Nerdfighteria? My name is Garrett Robinson. I've been a nerdfighter since the year 2014. So I'm a writer, and I used to have a podcast about writing, which eventually died because the co-host and I didn't have enough time to maintain it. I tried to resurrect the podcast as a solo act, just updating people on what I was doing, but it's hard to build a community around a podcast, and without co-hosts, I really felt alone and isolated, so it eventually died again. Sometime later, I was guesting on the podcast of a friend of mine, a guy named Buddy Gott, and Buddy said how much he missed my podcast and wished I was still doing it because he felt like he never heard from me anymore. So I had this brilliant idea that no one had ever thought of before, and that is that I would start posting video updates on YouTube. I thought this was a wild, bizarre idea that nobody would have ever thought of before. It was so weird. Why would you think to do this? So I started doing it every single day and then really quickly realized that's like super hard to maintain, so I just started doing it as often as I could. And then after 3 months of this, an old friend of mine messaged me and said, "Holy cow, I love these YouTube videos that you've been doing. I didn't even know you were a vlogger. And you know, your style really reminds me of Hank Green." And I was like, "What's a vlogger? And who the F is Hank?" No kidding, I actually said that. So that's how I found the Vlogbrothers. Now, it turned out that I had already seen a couple of educational John videos before. I specifically remember seeing him talk about Obamacare in a video before I actually discovered their channel for real. But from the moment I started watching them, I realized I had found my people. Not just John and Hank, but the online community that surrounded them. So I heard about VidCon and I immediately bought a ticket since it was in Anaheim and that's only about an hour-and-a-half drive from where I currently am living. When I first got to VidCon, I felt really out of place. I was this bearded, almost 30-year-old man in a room of, you know, predominantly teenagers and predominantly teenage girls. But then Hallie Fleming from the channel Hallie Isn't British walked up to me and asked if I wanted to play cards. I had no idea what to do with an offer like that, so I kind of almost accidentally said yes, and so we started hanging out and playing cards, and then from there she introduced me to other YouTubers who I had never even heard of before, and I kind of learned about YouTube from there. And every other person who I went on to meet in Nerdfighteria was just like that. "Oh, hi, you look a little confused and maybe a little bit lost. Do you want some help? Do you want to be shown around? Check this out. Isn't this cool?" And to me, that is the exact encapsulation of what Nerdfighteria is all about. It is making each other feel welcome and comfortable and introducing each other to cool things we never would have heard of otherwise. That first year at VidCon, Hallie practically forced me into meeting John Green, who I was too embarrassed to approach, and so she made me, and he was of course gracious and wonderful and polite about it. So the next year when I was at VidCon with one of my dearest Nerdfighteria friends, Liz, she felt kind of the same way about meeting Wheezy Waiter, and so I was able to pay it forward and kind of force her into meeting him. And just like I was after I was forced to meet John, she felt super grateful afterwards that she had done it, and that just felt kind of super awesome. I don't know how else to put it. So as long as Nerdfighteria exists, I will try to help people in it enjoy it and themselves as much as possible, because it is where I have regained my ability to be unironically enthusiastic about stuff, and that's just kind of what I want for everybody else, too. If you feel like leaving a comment down below, I would love to hear the story of the first friend that you made in Nerdfighteria, and if it was as awkward as mine or if it went a little bit more naturally. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Liz, for putting this channel together, and I will catch you all around the internets. Bye!